2026 doesn't need a dramatic collapse to cause real problems. Disruptions rarely arrive all at once, and they almost never look like the movies. Power outages, supply shortages, cyber disruptions, and extreme weather already affect everyday life. Some of these threats remain far more likely than others. Today, we're breaking down the top threats for preppers in 2026, ranked by how likely they are, how far they spread, and how much damage they cause to normal life. Welcome to Prepper's Paradigm, your channel dedicated to practical prepping and disaster preparedness. I use a computer-generated voice in these videos because my own voice is difficult to understand due to an injury. This video isn't about fear, speculation, or worst-case fantasies. The goal here is analysis. We're looking at the most realistic threats heading into 2026 using three simple criteria. First, probability. How likely is this threat to occur during 2026? Second, scale. Does it affect the local area, the nation, or the wider world? Third, impact. Does it cause minor inconvenience, or does it seriously disrupt daily life through injuries, deaths, or long-term instability? Some events score high in one category and low in another. A low probability event can still carry a massive impact. A high probability event might only cause regional disruption, yet still matter greatly to preppers. This analysis focuses on threats that affect people living in the United States, while also covering global events that ripple into daily American life through energy, food, and supply chains. Let's start with the threats most likely to affect ordinary households in 2026. Each threat in this video gets evaluated using the same three ratings so you can compare them clearly. Probability looks at how likely the threat is to occur during 2026. High means the conditions already exist or the event happens regularly. Medium means the risk is credible but depends on additional triggers. Low means the event remains possible but unlikely within this time frame. Scale refers to how far the effects reach. Local disasters affect cities or regions. National events disrupt large parts of the country. Global-scale disasters create knock-on effects that reach nearly everyone through trade, energy, or information systems. Impact measures how badly normal life gets disrupted. High impact means serious injuries, loss of life, or widespread breakdowns in essential services. Medium impact means major disruption without total collapse. Low impact means inconvenience rather than danger. These ratings aren't predictions. They're tools to help preppers think clearly and avoid overreacting to dramatic but unlikely scenarios. With that framework in place, let's move into the first and most consistent threat facing preppers in 2026. Extreme weather. Probability, high. Scale, local to national. Impact, high. Extreme weather remains the most consistent and predictable threat heading into 2026. Heat waves, hurricanes, flooding, wildfires, and severe winter storms already disrupt millions of Americans every year. These events don't require a rare alignment of circumstances. Seasonal patterns, aging infrastructure, and population growth in high-risk areas all increase exposure. Heat stresses power grids. Flooding cuts road access and supply routes. Wildfires force evacuations with little warning. Winter storms still cripple regions unaccustomed to cold or heavy snow. The danger doesn't come only from the storm itself. Secondary effects often cause the most disruption. Extended power outages shut down refrigeration, communications, and fuel access. Road closures delay emergency services and resupply. Insurance delays and repair backlogs leave families displaced for months. For preppers, extreme weather sits at the top of the list because it combines high probability with high impact. Many households experience these events without warning, and recovery often takes far longer than expected. This threat sets the baseline for preparedness in 2026. If your plans don't handle weather-related disruption, other scenarios matter far less. Grid strain and power outages. Probability, medium. Scale, local to national. Impact, high. Power outages don't feel dramatic at first, but they quickly expose how fragile modern life really is. By 2026, electrical grids in many parts of the U.S. remain under strain from aging infrastructure, rising demand, and extreme weather. Summer heat waves push air conditioning use to record levels. Winter cold snaps stress gas supply and generation capacity. Maintenance delays and fuel logistics problems increase the chance of cascading failures. Most outages don't come from a single massive event. They result from smaller failures stacking on top of each other. One downed line leads to load shedding. Load shedding leads to rolling blackouts. Rolling blackouts disrupt water treatment, fuel pumps, grocery stores, and communications. Short outages already cause panic buying and fuel lines. Longer outages create serious safety risks for people relying on medical devices, electric heating, or refrigerated medications. For preppers, grid failure ranks high because electricity underpins almost everything else. Food, water, transportation, and information all degrade fast without it. This threat doesn't require sabotage or conflict. Normal seasonal stress alone can push the system past its limits. Cyberattacks affecting daily life. Probability, high. Scale, national to international. Impact, medium to high. Cyberattacks no longer sit in the background of global politics. They increasingly interfere with everyday systems that people rely on without thinking about them. Hospitals, local governments, payment processors, fuel suppliers, and logistics companies all remain frequent targets. Many attacks don't aim for dramatic destruction. They aim for disruption, ransom, or confusion. A single successful attack can shut down medical scheduling, delay emergency services, or halt fuel distribution across an entire region. Payment outages prevent card transactions. Inventory systems fail. Communication between agencies breaks down at the worst possible moment. These events often unfold quietly. People notice the effects before they ever hear the word cyberattack. Gas stations stop accepting cards. Hospitals divert patients. Government services go offline with vague explanations. For preppers, cyber disruption matters because it creates real-world shortages without visible damage. Supplies still exist, but access disappears. Recovery depends on specialists, not repair crews, and timelines remain unpredictable. This threat scores high on probability because attacks already happen every day. The impact rises quickly when outages stretch beyond a few hours. Digital disruption and AI-driven chaos. Probability, high. Scale, national to global. Impact, medium. Digital disruption doesn't always look like a system failure. Often, it shows up as confusion, fraud, and bad information spreading faster than people can verify it. AI-driven scams already target individuals, businesses, and local governments. Voice cloning, fake videos, and automated phishing campaigns grow more convincing every year. By 2026, separating real information from manipulated content becomes harder during fast-moving events. Financial impacts often come first. Fake outage notices trigger panic buying. False bank alerts lock people out of accounts. Market rumors cause sudden price spikes or sell-offs that ripple into everyday costs. During emergencies, misinformation creates secondary crises. People act on bad data. Supply runs happen at the wrong time. Trust in official updates erodes, even when accurate information finally appears. For preppers, this threat matters because it undermines decision-making rather than infrastructure. Preparedness relies on timing and judgment. Bad information at the wrong moment turns manageable situations into serious problems. This risk scores medium on impact because disruption usually remains temporary. The damage comes from how many people respond poorly before clarity returns. Supply chain disruption and price spikes. Probability, medium. Scale, international to national. Impact, medium to high. Supply chains look stable right up until they aren't. Most disruptions don't come from total collapse. They come from delays, bottlenecks, and sudden cost increases that ripple outward. Shipping choke points, labor shortages, cyber incidents, and regional conflicts all remain capable of disrupting the flow of goods in 2026. Even short interruptions push prices up fast. Fuel costs rise first. Food and household essentials follow shortly after. For most people, the warning signs appear at the store. Empty shelves show up sporadically. Limits get placed on everyday items. Prices jump between restocking cycles with little explanation. Supply problems also feed other threats. Weather events strain transportation. Cyberattacks delay logistics systems. Geopolitical tension disrupts trade routes and insurance markets. For preppers, this threat matters because it affects replenishment. Stored supplies buy time, but replacing what you use becomes harder and more expensive. Households without buffer stocks feel the impact immediately. This risk doesn't require a global crisis to unfold. Small shocks stacking together create the same result. Pandemic risk and disruptive respiratory seasons. Probability, medium. Scale, national to global. Impact, medium to high. Pandemics don't arrive on a clean schedule, but public health risks don't disappear just because attention shifts elsewhere. By 2026, health systems still face pressure from overlapping respiratory illnesses, seasonal surges, and emerging strains. Most future outbreaks won't look like early 2020. Instead, disruption comes from staffing shortages, delayed care, school closures, and inconsistent guidance. Hospitals reach capacity faster than expected. Supply chains for medicines and protective equipment tighten quickly. Even moderate outbreaks create knock-on effects. Workplaces lose staff, transportation slows, public confidence drops, leading to panic buying and erratic behavior. For preppers, the real risk comes from duration rather than intensity. Weeks or months of uneven disruption wear people down. Households that rely on frequent shopping trips or just-in-time medical supplies feel pressure first. This threat earns a medium probability rating because timing remains uncertain. The impact rises sharply if outbreaks overlap with other stresses like winter storms or supply shortages. Geopolitical escalation and spillover effects. Probability, medium. Scale, international to global. Impact, high. Geopolitical tensions rarely affect households overnight. They build quietly, then show up indirectly through prices, shortages, and instability. By 2026, multiple flashpoints remain active around the world. Regional conflicts, great power competition, and proxy wars continue to shape energy markets, trade routes, and cyber activity. Most Americans won't experience these events directly, but the consequences still reach home. Energy prices often react first. Fuel costs jump after shipping disruptions or sanctions. Insurance rates rise for transport and manufacturing. Food prices follow when fertilizer, fuel, or exports get restricted. Geopolitical conflict also increases the risk of cyber activity and information warfare. States and aligned groups target infrastructure, financial systems, and public confidence. These actions rarely get framed as acts of war, yet they still disrupt daily life. For preppers, this threat matters because it amplifies others. Supply chain disruptions last longer. Cyber incidents become more frequent. Economic pressure increases at the household level. This risk scores medium on probability because escalation depends on decisions outside any individual's control. The impact stays high because even limited conflict can trigger widespread economic and logistical consequences. Economic downturn and renewed inflation pressure. Probability, medium. Scale, national. Impact, medium to high. Economic stress rarely announces itself clearly. For many households, the first signs appear as higher prices, reduced hours, or job insecurity rather than a sudden crash. By 2026, debt levels, interest rates, and global uncertainty continue to create pressure on the U.S. economy. Even a mild downturn hits preppers in practical ways. Food costs rise. Fuel stays expensive. Credit tightens when people need flexibility the most. Inflation acts as a slow-moving disruption. Savings lose purchasing power. Replacing stored supplies costs more than expected. Long-term preparedness plans stretch thinner over time. Economic strain also magnifies other threats. Natural disasters hit harder when households lack financial buffers. Health emergencies become more difficult to manage. Supply disruptions feel sharper when budgets already run tight. For preppers, this threat matters because it affects readiness long before any visible crisis. Preparedness becomes harder to maintain, not easier, during economic stress. This risk earns a medium probability rating because outcomes depend on multiple factors. The impact reaches medium to high because financial pressure reshapes everyday decisions for millions of people. Water stress and regional drought impacts. Probability, medium. Scale, local to national. Impact, medium. Water problems rarely feel urgent until access changes suddenly. By 2026, parts of the United States continue to face long-term drought, shrinking reservoirs, and increasing competition for water. The effects often start quietly. Restrictions get introduced. Agricultural output drops. Food prices rise as irrigation costs increase and yields fall. Urban areas feel the impact of limits on outdoor water use, higher utility bills, and strain on aging infrastructure. Rural areas face tougher choices around farming, livestock, and groundwater depletion. Water stress also compounds other threats. Heat waves increase demand when supply already runs tight. Wildfire risk rises as vegetation dries out. Migration within the country increases pressure on regions with more reliable water access. For preppers, this threat matters because water underpins everything else. Food production, sanitation, and health all depend on it. Even short-term restrictions change daily routines quickly. This risk earns a medium probability rating because it concentrates regionally rather than nationwide. The impact stays medium for most people, but it becomes severe for those living in affected areas. Civil unrest and localized instability. Probability, low to medium. Scale, local to national. Impact, medium. Civil unrest rarely spreads evenly across a country. It tends to flare in specific locations, driven by local conditions layered on top of national tensions. By 2026, political polarization, economic pressure, and fast-moving online narratives continue to create flashpoints. Most people won't experience unrest directly. Those who do often find themselves dealing with sudden curfews, road closures, or overwhelmed emergency services. These events usually remain short-lived, but the disruption feels intense while it lasts. Businesses close unexpectedly. Public transport gets suspended. Police resources concentrate in small areas, leaving other neighborhoods with delayed response times. For preppers, the main risk comes from being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Travel plans fall apart quickly. Routine errands turn risky. Normal services pause without notice. This threat scores lower on probability because widespread unrest remains unlikely. The impact stays medium due to its localized but abrupt nature. With the main threats covered, let's step back and look at the patterns that connect them. None of these threats exist in isolation. The biggest problems in 2026 are likely to come from overlap rather than single events. Extreme weather stresses the power grid. Grid failures disrupt communications, fuel access, and water treatment. Cyber incidents slow recovery when systems already operate under pressure. Economic strain makes every disruption harder to absorb. Supply shortages last longer when people lack financial buffers. Health systems struggle more when staffing already runs thin. Digital disruption accelerates all of it. Bad information spreads faster than accurate updates. People react emotionally instead of rationally. Small problems escalate into larger ones through panic and poor timing. For preppers, this pattern matters more than any individual threat. Preparedness works best when plans account for cascading effects. One failure often triggers 2 or 3 others. 2026 doesn't require a single catastrophic event to cause serious disruption. A combination of ordinary stresses can produce extraordinary consequences. Most disruptions in 2026 won't look dramatic. They'll look inconvenient, frustrating, and expensive. Power stays out longer than expected. Supplies cost more to replace. Information arrives late or turns out to be wrong. The threats with the highest probability share one thing in common. They strain everyday systems rather than destroying them outright. Preparedness helps by reducing dependence on fragile routines. This doesn't require extreme measures or collapse scenarios. It requires flexibility, redundancy, and realistic expectations. Households that plan for short-term disruption often handle longer events better. If your preparations cover weather, power loss, supply interruptions, and information gaps, you're already addressing most of the risks heading into 2026. If you found this analysis helpful, please like the video and subscribe. Let me know in the comments which threat concerns you most for 2026, or which one you think gets overlooked. Thanks for watching Prepper's Paradigm. Stay safe, stay prepared.